Hello and welcome to Ocean News. My name is Kirsty Nolan and I am live from the London studio. We bring you the latest developments from around the globe alongside in-depth coverage of the stories. Let's dive right into the headlines. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney agreed that peace in Ukraine must be built with Kyiv and not imposed upon it, a Downing Street spokesperson said. The two leaders welcomed continued international diplomacy led by President US Donald Trump to bring peace and agreed that this must be built with Ukraine, not imposed upon it. Both leaders underscored that Ukraine's future must be one of freedom, sovereignty, and self-determination. The statement came as Trump is due to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday in Alaska. Multiple explosions at a US steel plant near Pittsburgh killed 2 people and injured 10 others. The blasts at the Clariton Coke Works, part of a sprawling industrial complex along the Monongahela River, firefighters battled flames and heavy smoke that billowed out of the plant, which is owned by US Steel, a subsidiary of Nippon Steel. Allegheny County Police Assistant Superintendent Victor Joseph said 2 people were reported missing. 1 person was found and transported to a local hospital. David Burritt, President and Chief Executive Officer of US Steel, said in a statement that the company was working with local authorities to discover the cause. US President Donald Trump said he would ask Congress to tighten US crime laws as part of a crackdown on violent crime in the District of Columbia and other US cities. Trump said Congress should inform reforms in Chicago, New York, and some other cities that allow some accused criminals to get out of jail ahead of their trial dates without posting a cash bond. Every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster, Trump said at a White House press conference, where he announced that he was putting the US Capitol's police department under federal control and deploying 800 National Guard troops. Trump said the Department of Justice would craft legislation to end the practice and called on his fellow Republicans to push the bill through the narrowly divided Senate and House of Representatives. 26 European heads of state and government said in a statement that Ukrainians must have the freedom to decide their future and that a diplomatic solution must protect Ukrainian and European interests. Meaningful negotiations can only take place in the context of a ceasefire or reduction of hostilities, the leaders said, adding that we share the conviction that a diplomatic solution must protect Ukraine and Europe's vital security interests. The statement, which was agreed late on Monday and published on Tuesday, was endorsed by leaders of all EU member countries except Hungary. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chinese President Xi Jinping have discussed the role of the BRICS group of states and bilateral business over a phone call. The leaders spoke for an hour, agreeing on the role of the G20 and BRICS in defending multilateralism. Both presidents also highlighted their willingness to continue identifying new business opportunities between the two economies. Lula said last week he would initiate a conversation about how to tackle Trump's tariffs with BRICS nations, after Trump dubbed the group anti-American and threatened them with additional tariffs. Xi called BRICS a key platform for building consensus in the global south and said China is ready to work with Brazil to set an example of unity and self-reliance among major global south nations. Authorities in Taiwan were scrambling to evacuate hundreds ahead of a possible landfall by Typhoon Podul on the island's southeastern coast, while nearby areas battled to recover from floods and record winds brought by previous storms. Taiwan is regularly hit by typhoons, generally along its mountainous, sparsely populated east coast facing the Pacific. The mid-strength Typhoon Podul, packing gusts of wind as much as 155 kilometers an hour, was heading for the southeastern city of Taichung as it intensifies and was expected to make landfall nearby on Wednesday. In the eastern county of Hualien, nearly 700 people will be evacuated from their homes to guard against the risk of overflow from a natural dam formed after a landslide caused by a previous typhoon. The The United States and China extended a tariff truce for another 90 days, staving off triple-digit duties on each other's goods as US retailers get ready to ramp up inventories ahead of the critical end-of-year holiday season. US President Donald Trump announced that he has signed an executive order suspending the imposition of higher tariffs on November 10th, with all other elements of the truce to remain in place. China's Commerce Ministry issued a parallel pause on extra tariffs early on Tuesday, also postponing for 90 days the addition of US firms it had targeted in April to trade and investment restriction lists. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said that Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, is in denial about the suffering inflicted on Gaza, and the international community is now saying enough is enough. A day after announcing that Australia will recognise Palestinian statehood at the United Nations next month, Albanese said that frustration with Israeli government amid the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza has contributed to Australia's decision to recognise a Palestinian state. Albanese said Netanyahu again reiterated to me what he has said publicly, which is to be in denial about the consequences that are occurring for innocent people. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Vladimir Putin is not preparing for a ceasefire, but is readying his troops for new offensive operations in Ukraine, even as the Russian leader is set to meet US President Donald Trump for peace talks in Alaska. Zelensky said reports from Ukrainian intelligence and military commanders indicate that Putin intends to present his meeting on Friday with Trump as a personal victory, and then continue acting exactly as before in the war in Ukraine. Zelensky said, "He is definitely not preparing for a ceasefire or an end to the war. There is no indication whatsoever that the Russians have received signals to prepare for a post-war situation." New Zealand parliamentarian Chloe Swarbrick was ordered to leave Parliament during a heated debate over the government's response to Palestine. An urgent debate was called after the centre-right government said it was weighing up its position on whether to recognise a Palestinian state. Close ally Australia joined Canada, the UK and France in announcing that it would recognise a Palestinian state at a UN conference in September. Swarbrick, who is co-leader of the Green Party, said New Zealand was a laggard and an outlier, and the lack of decision was appalling, before calling on some government members to support a bill to sanction Israel for its war crimes. The bill was proposed by her in March and is supported by all opposition parties. Those were the headlines. Stay with us as we delve into each story in greater detail after a brief pause.